You came, alone. The laughter wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. Everyone standing near the wedding entrance heard Daniel's words. Emma Carter forced herself to smile. I was invited. Daniel glanced at the empty space beside her. I thought you'd at least bring someone. His fiancée, Vanessa, crossed her arms with a satisfied smile. I guess some people never really move on. Emma felt dozens of eyes watching her. She had promised herself she wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of the man who had ended their 6-year relationship and married someone else less than a year later. She quietly tightened her grip on her clutch purse. I'm doing just fine. Daniel laughed softly. Really? Because it doesn't look like it. Before Emma could answer, someone stepped beside her. A warm hand rested gently around her shoulder. The stranger looked directly at Daniel. His voice was calm. She's with me. The entire entrance fell silent. Emma stared at the man beside her. She had never seen him before in her life. Daniel frowned. And you are? The stranger smiled politely. Someone who doesn't think she should be standing here alone. Emma's heartbeat raced. She didn't know his name. She didn't know why he had helped. She only noticed something strange. One of the hotel's senior employees froze for a second after seeing the stranger. He almost walked over, then quietly changed direction instead. Emma barely noticed. She was too busy wondering why a complete stranger had just rescued her. 2 days earlier, 30-year-old Emma Carter almost declined the wedding invitation. She opened it 3 different times, closed it 3 different times. Her best friend Sophie finally took the envelope from her hands. You're seriously thinking about going? Emma sighed. I don't know. You owe Daniel nothing. I know. So why torture yourself? Emma looked out the apartment window. Because I don't want one bad ending to control the rest of my life. 8 months earlier, Daniel had ended their relationship with one sentence. I think we've grown into different people. 3 months later, photos of his engagement flooded social media. Emma understood the real reason. Vanessa came from one of Chicago's wealthiest families. Daniel's career suddenly accelerated. Promotions, luxury vacations, magazine interviews. Everything happened almost overnight. Emma never contacted him again. Instead, she focused on rebuilding her own life. She worked as an interior designer for a small architecture studio, slowly earning back the confidence heartbreak had stolen. Some days were easier than others, but wedding invitations had a way of reopening old wounds. Saturday evening arrived faster than she expected. The ceremony was being held at the luxurious Grand Crescent Hotel overlooking Lake Michigan. Crystal chandeliers reflected across polished marble floors. Soft piano music drifted through the elegant lobby. Emma wore a simple emerald green evening dress. Beautiful, elegant, but intentionally understated. She didn't come to compete with anyone. She only wanted to prove to herself that she could walk into the same room as Daniel, and walk back out with her dignity. Unfortunately, Daniel noticed her the moment she arrived. So, he smiled while greeting guests. You really came. Emma nodded politely. I said I would. His eyes moved toward the empty entrance behind her. No date. Before she answered, Vanessa joined him. I told Daniel you'd probably bring a fake boyfriend. Several nearby guests laughed politely. Emma's face warmed. I didn't think I needed one. Vanessa smiled. I suppose not everyone has that option. The words landed harder than Emma expected. She looked toward the exit. Maybe leaving wasn't weakness. Maybe it was peace. She turned slightly. Then everything changed. A tall man in a dark navy suit stepped through the revolving doors. He wasn't trying to attract attention. Yet somehow people naturally made room for him. He glanced around the lobby. His eyes landed on Emma. He immediately understood the situation. Without hesitation, he walked toward her. He stopped beside her, placed one reassuring arm gently around her shoulder, then looked directly at Daniel. She's with me. Daniel blinked. Vanessa's confident smile disappeared. Emma looked up at the stranger in complete confusion. His expression remained calm, as though protecting strangers from embarrassment was something he did every day. Emma stood frozen. The stranger's arm still rested lightly around her shoulders. He wasn't pretending to own the room. He was simply giving her enough confidence to stand in it. Daniel forced a laugh. So? He looked at the stranger. I didn't realize Emma was seeing someone. The stranger answered calmly. There's a lot you don't realize. Vanessa folded her arms. And who exactly are you? He smiled politely. A wedding guest. Daniel frowned. I've never seen you before. That's possible. Emma could hardly believe how naturally he handled the conversation. It almost sounded as though they had known each other for years. Daniel shrugged. Well, enjoy the evening. Vanessa wasn't finished. She looked directly at Emma. You certainly moved on quickly. Before Emma could answer, the stranger spoke first. I don't think anyone needs permission to move forward. Vanessa had no reply. For the first time that evening, she looked uncomfortable. As soon as Daniel and Vanessa walked away, Emma turned toward the stranger. You didn't have to do that. I know. Then why? He smiled. Because someone should have. She laughed softly. I don't even know your name. Neither do I. She blinked. He smiled again. I mean, I don't know yours. She couldn't help laughing. I'm Emma. He extended his hand. Ethan. Just Ethan. For tonight. Mysterious. I've been called worse. A waiter passed carrying champagne. Ethan picked up 2 glasses and handed one to Emma. You look like you need this. I was thinking exactly the same thing. They walked away from the crowded entrance toward the hotel's garden terrace overlooking the lake. The fresh evening air finally allowed Emma to breathe again. I'm embarrassed. You shouldn't be. I practically became tonight's entertainment. No. He looked toward the ballroom. The people laughing embarrassed themselves. Emma studied him for a moment. You say things very confidently. I've made enough mistakes to know the difference. She smiled. So you're speaking from experience. I usually am. The hotel garden was filled with fairy lights and soft music. A little flower girl sat alone on a bench crying quietly. Her basket had tipped over. White rose petals covered the pathway. Without hesitation, Emma knelt beside her. Need some help? The little girl nodded. My flowers. Within seconds Emma began gathering the petals. Ethan silently joined her. The little girl smiled. Thank you. Emma fixed the tiny flower crown on the girl's head. There. Perfect. The girl's mother hurried over. I'm so sorry. Emma smiled. Everything's okay. The woman thanked them repeatedly before walking away. Ethan watched Emma. You help people without thinking. She shrugged. My mother always said kindness shouldn't require planning. He looked thoughtful. She sounds wise. She was. As they continued walking, Emma asked, so what brings you to this wedding? A friend. The groom or the bride? He smiled. Neither. That's suspicious. Is it? You've answered every question without actually answering it. He laughed. I noticed. And I'm still doing it. She rolled her eyes playfully. I should have guessed. Back inside the ballroom, guests gathered for dinner. Emma expected Ethan to disappear. Instead, he quietly pulled out her chair before taking the seat beside her. Daniel noticed immediately. His smile faded. Throughout dinner, he kept glancing toward their table. Vanessa noticed too. You've been staring. I'm not. You've looked over there 5 times. Daniel sighed. I just don't remember her smiling that much recently. Vanessa's expression hardened. Halfway through dinner, one of the elderly guests accidentally dropped his walking cane. Before any waiter reacted, Ethan was already helping him. He carefully picked it up and made sure the older man was comfortable. The gentleman smiled warmly. "Thank you, son." "My pleasure." As Ethan stood, the hotel's banquet manager hurried over. The manager suddenly stopped after seeing him. His posture became noticeably straighter. For a second, he almost said something. "Good evening, Cy." Ethan gave him a quick glance. The manager immediately corrected himself. "Good evening." Then he quietly walked away. Emma noticed everything. She frowned. "That's the second time." Ethan looked at her. "The second time what?" "Someone almost called you sir." He smiled calmly. "Old habits." "What habits?" "The hospitality industry can be very formal." "You work in hotels?" He hesitated for the briefest moment. "Something like that." Emma folded her arms. "I don't believe you." "You shouldn't believe everything strangers say." She laughed. "But you're not exactly a stranger anymore." He looked at her for a moment. "No." He admitted softly. "I'm not." Just then, a black luxury sedan stopped outside the ballroom entrance. A sharply dressed older man stepped out carrying a leather portfolio. The moment he entered, his eyes searched the room. When they landed on Ethan, he immediately started walking toward him. Emma followed the man's gaze. A strange feeling settled in her chest. Who exactly had rescued her tonight? The older man stopped a few feet from Ethan. He was dressed in an expensive black suit and carried a leather portfolio. For a brief second, he looked ready to speak. Instead, Ethan gave him a subtle shake of his head. The man immediately changed direction. He simply nodded politely. "Good evening." Then he walked away without another word. Emma watched him disappear. "Okay." She folded her arms. That was definitely strange. Ethan looked innocent. "What was?" "The man clearly came over to talk to you." "He changed his mind." "No. He changed because of you." Ethan smiled. "You notice everything." "It's literally my job." "Interior designer." She looked surprised. "I don't remember telling you that." "You mentioned blueprints when we were outside." She laughed. "So you actually listen." "I try." The live band began playing slow jazz as guests moved toward the dance floor. Emma stayed where she was. "I haven't danced in months." Ethan looked toward the musicians. "Maybe that's why you should." She smiled. "You assume I dance well." "I don't." "You don't." "I assume you're brave enough to try." She laughed. "That's different." "It is." After a moment's hesitation, she placed her hand in his. He led her onto the dance floor. Neither of them danced perfectly. They laughed when they missed a step. Emma accidentally stepped on his shoe. "I'm sorry." He smiled. "That's still less painful than watching your ex make bad jokes." She couldn't help laughing. Nearby, Daniel watched the entire dance. Vanessa noticed immediately. "You've been looking at them all night." "I'm just surprised." "By what?" "She looks happy." Vanessa's expression darkened. When the song ended, Emma and Ethan stepped outside onto the lakeside terrace. The cool breeze carried the sound of distant waves. For a few quiet moments, neither of them spoke. Finally Emma asked, "Can I ask you something honestly?" "You just did." She smiled. "You avoid serious questions." "Sometimes." "Why did you really help me?" He looked toward the water. "When I walked into the lobby, I saw someone trying very hard not to let another person break her." She looked down quietly. "I know what that feels like." Emma turned toward him. "You've had your heart broken." He nodded once. "A long time ago." "What happened?" "I trusted the wrong people." His answer sounded deeper than romance, as if it applied to far more than relationships. Their conversation was interrupted by a young hotel employee carrying a heavy stack of gift boxes. One box slipped. The employee stumbled toward the stairs. Without hesitation, Ethan caught the boxes before they crashed to the ground. "You okay?" The young man nodded quickly. "Yes, thank you." He looked at Ethan with obvious recognition. For a second he almost smiled. "Mr." Ethan calmly interrupted. "I think these belong inside." The employee immediately understood. "Of course." He hurried away. Emma looked at Ethan again. "That's 3. He raised an eyebrow. "3 what?" "3 people tonight who almost called you something." He smiled. "You've been counting." "I've been paying attention." "And what have you decided?" She thought for a moment. "I know you don't work for the hotel." "No. I know people respect you." "Maybe. And I know you're hiding something." He looked directly into her eyes. "I am." She waited. "But not because I wanted to lie." Later that evening, guests gathered for the bride and groom's first dance. Emma quietly stood near one of the grand marble columns. She wasn't watching the dance. She was watching Ethan. Several important-looking guests entered the ballroom. The hotel's general manager rushed over to greet them. As they walked through the room, every one of them looked toward Ethan. One executive even started walking directly toward him. Before reaching him, another man quietly whispered something into his ear. The executive immediately stopped. Instead of greeting Ethan, he simply nodded respectfully from across the room. Emma frowned. This was becoming impossible to ignore. A few minutes later, Sophie arrived after being delayed by traffic. She hugged Emma tightly. "I'm sorry I'm late." "It's okay." Sophie looked toward Ethan. "So, who's the handsome guy?" Emma smiled. "I honestly don't know." "You've been dancing with a man whose last name you don't know." Emma laughed. "When you say it like that, it sounds ridiculous." Sophie leaned closer. "I've been watching him." "What about him?" "Every important person here seems to know who he is." Emma looked back toward Ethan. "I noticed." Just then, the ballroom lights dimmed unexpectedly. A massive LED screen behind the stage came to life. A promotional video for the hotel's biggest business partners began playing. Company logos, luxury developments, corporate leaders. One photograph appeared for less than a second before the screen suddenly changed. Emma couldn't clearly see the face, but she was almost certain. It was Ethan. She turned toward him in confusion. At that exact moment, a woman in an elegant black suit hurried into the ballroom. She walked directly to Ethan. Lowering her voice, she said, "Sir, the board members have arrived. They're waiting in the executive lounge." Emma heard every word. Her heart skipped. Board members? Executive lounge? Who exactly? Had just spent the entire evening pretending to be an ordinary wedding guest. Emma stared at the woman in the black suit. Board members. The woman immediately realized she had spoken too openly. "My apologies, sir." Ethan gave her a calm nod. "I'll be there shortly." She quietly stepped away. Emma slowly turned toward him. "Sir." Ethan didn't answer immediately. "I was going to tell you." "When?" "Tonight." She gave a small, disappointed laugh. After everyone else already knew. Before Ethan could respond, the ballroom lights dimmed. The master of ceremonies stepped onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank someone whose generosity helped restore this historic hotel and funded tonight's charity foundation." The giant LED screen lit up. A short video began playing. Luxury hotels, international resorts, business awards. Then one photograph filled the screen. The same man standing beside Emma. The caption beneath the image read, "Ethan Blackwood, founder and CEO, Blackwood Hospitality Group. Emma's heart sank. The applause echoed throughout the ballroom. Every executive stood. Every hotel manager applauded. Several guests even moved aside as Ethan walked toward the stage. The stranger who had wrapped his arm around her owned the hotel, owned the company, owned nearly everything around them. Ethan accepted the microphone. His speech lasted less than a minute. He thanked the charity organizers, congratulated the bride and groom, then quietly stepped off the stage. The first place he walked was back to Emma. "I'm sorry." She looked directly at him. "You own this hotel." "Yes." "You knew who I was." "Yes." "You watched Daniel humiliate me." "Already knowing exactly who you were." "I did." "And you never thought I deserved the truth." Ethan remained silent for a moment. Finally he answered honestly, "I wanted one evening where someone looked at me instead of my position." Emma nodded slowly. "I understand why. But you still made the choice for me." Just then Daniel hurried over. His attitude had completely changed. "Mr. Blackwood." Ethan interrupted politely. "Ethan is fine." Daniel forced a nervous smile. "I'd love the opportunity to discuss a partnership sometime." Emma looked at Daniel in disbelief. Only an hour earlier, he had laughed at Ethan. Now he wanted a business meeting. Ethan answered calmly, "I'm afraid tonight isn't the right place." Daniel nodded awkwardly and stepped back. Emma quietly whispered, "So that's what you meant." "What?" "You said people change after learning who you are." He looked around the ballroom. Executives suddenly wanted his attention. Guests smiled differently. Managers waited for instructions. Everything Emma had seen during the evening finally made sense. She looked back at Ethan. "I never would have cared that you were wealthy." "I know." "No." She shook her head. "You hoped that. But you never trusted me enough to prove it." Those words hurt more than anything Daniel had said all night. Because Ethan knew they were true. He reached into his jacket pocket. "There was something I wanted to return." He opened his hand. Emma's silver bracelet. It had slipped from her wrist while they danced earlier. "I was waiting until the evening ended." She looked at it quietly, then closed his hand again. "Keep it." He frowned. "What?" "So you'll remember this night." "Not because I met a billionaire, but because I met someone I genuinely liked, who never gave me the chance to know the real him." Emma stepped backward. "I don't regret meeting you." She smiled sadly. "I just wish the first honest conversation we'd hadn't happened after your introduction on a stage." Ethan wanted to say something. Anything. But no explanation could erase what had happened. Emma turned toward the ballroom exit. She didn't cry. She didn't run. She simply walked away with her dignity intact. Ethan stood motionless, watching her disappear into the night. For the first time in years, the man who negotiated billion-dollar deals without hesitation realized something no business success had ever taught him. Some opportunities could disappear forever after a single moment of lost trust. 3 weeks passed. Emma returned to her normal life. She focused on designing homes instead of replaying memories. She accepted a new project renovating a historic community center, determined to move forward on her own. The silver bracelet Ethan still carried never left his jacket pocket. Neither of them reached out. Not because they had forgotten each other, but because both believed the other deserved peace. One Monday morning, Emma received an unexpected phone call. "Miss Carter." "Yes. I'm calling from the Chicago Children's Foundation. We'd like to invite you to participate in the redesign of our new family support center." Emma smiled. "I'd love to." When she arrived 2 days later, she froze. The foundation's biggest sponsor was Blackwood Hospitality. She quietly considered leaving. Before she could, the foundation director approached. "Please don't go." She looked confused. Mr. Blackwood had nothing to do with selecting the designer. The board chose your proposal anonymously. Emma slowly nodded. She stayed. Throughout the project, Ethan kept his promise. He never interfered. He never requested meetings. He never used his position to get close to her. Whenever they happened to cross paths inside the building, he simply smiled politely and continued working. For the first time, Emma saw him treating her exactly as he had claimed he wanted to. Like an equal. Not someone he could influence. A month later, the community center officially opened. Children ran through colorful reading rooms. Families filled the activity spaces Emma had designed. Watching them laugh made every late night worthwhile. During the opening ceremony, the foundation director stepped onto the stage. "I'd like everyone to know something." He smiled toward Emma. Mr. Blackwood removed himself from every decision involving this project. He insisted the winning designer be selected without his vote. Emma looked toward Ethan. He simply nodded once. No speeches. No attempt to impress her. Just quiet respect. For the first time since the wedding, she understood. He hadn't been trying to win her back with power. He had been proving he could let go of it. After the ceremony, Emma walked outside to the hotel's lakeside garden. She found Ethan standing near the water. Neither spoke immediately. Finally, Emma smiled. "You kept your promise." "I said I would." "You never called." "I wanted to. But I thought earning another chance meant respecting your decision first." She looked at him for a long moment. "I've been thinking about that night." "So have I. I understand why you hid your identity." He looked hopeful. "But it was still wrong." "I know. I was afraid. I've spent years wondering whether people liked me. Or what came with my name." He looked down briefly before continuing. "So when I met someone who treated me normally, I held on to that feeling too tightly." Emma nodded slowly. "And I judged you without giving you the chance to fix your mistake." They both smiled. Neither of them had been perfect. Ethan reached into his jacket pocket. "I believe this belongs to you." He opened his hand. Emma's silver bracelet rested in his palm. "You kept it." "I hoped I'd return it personally." She slipped it back onto her wrist. "It fits. So does honesty." They both laughed softly. Ethan took a slow breath. "Can I ask you one question?" "You can." "If we could go back to that wedding, and I walked through those doors again, what should I have done?" Emma smiled. "You would have walked over, put your arm around me, and then said, 'Hi, I'm Ethan.'" He laughed. "That's all." That would have been enough. He extended his hand exactly as though they had never met. "Hi. I'm Ethan Blackwood." She looked at his hand for a second before taking it. "I'm Emma Carter. It's nice to finally meet you honestly." She smiled. "I think it is." Instead of pulling her hand away, she kept holding it. "The first time you stood beside me, I needed someone to save me from embarrassment." She looked into his eyes. "This time, I don't need saving. I just want your company." Ethan smiled. "I'd like that." They began walking slowly along the lakeside path. No reporters followed. No executives interrupted. No one applauded. For the first time since they met, there were no secrets. Only two people beginning a relationship built on the truth they should have shared from the start. As they reached the same hotel entrance where everything had begun, Ethan gently offered his arm. Emma laughed. "So, am I still with you?" He smiled warmly. "No. This time, we're simply together." Subscribe for more emotional billionaire romance stories with unforgettable happy endings.